Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Northampton Planning Board meeting of February 27th, 2025. We appreciate your patience as we work through a few technical issues here. There's some new components in the city council chambers that we're working on. Before we open up the planning board hearings, there's two items on the agenda. The first one is at 213 Park Hill Road, and the second one is at 3 Elm Street. Before we open up either one of those, we customarily allow people to come to the podium and make any kind of public comment that they would like to, but not related to the two items that are on tonight's agenda, some other general topics that you'd like the planning board and the public to be aware of. So we'll start with council chambers. Is there anyone here in council chambers who would like to make a comment? Okay. We have a small crowd in Zoom. So is there anybody on our hybrid connection that would like to make a public comment, not related to the two agenda items? Okay, hearing none.
You might just know that, we're for one for 5.
So here, the planning board, there's 5 members here, city council, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have one person, Stacy Duque, joining us virtually. So if we have any votes today, we'll do a roll call voting. But we do have a quorum for any of the items that come up for a vote. All right. So I think we'll open up our first application, our first public hearing, which is a request for site plan amendment to modify a shared driveway by Wright Builders at 213 Park Hill Road, map ID 43123. It's a site plan review and it needs a simple majority vote to pass this, 4 out of our 7 members. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
There is, yeah, just prior to the Berkshire Design Group, Wright Builders isn't here. I think they're online virtually. I have to come up here and present.
Can you ask Stacy if she can hear you? Just as your
good point.
Stacy, can you hear Jeff talking?
And
Vaguely. I think I can hear you
now.
now.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, definitely.
There
Thank
we
you.
go. Okay. So let me, this is an interesting project in that, let's see.
Well, you're getting on plane.
Mhm.
So this project in front of you is about a site plan to amend a permit that was granted in 1994 for a shared driveway for 3 lots. It's been built, the homes are there. There's this last lot that was never developed. And there are wetlands along the frontage. In order to get directly to the street, you have to cross the wetlands. The applicant has gone to the Conservation Commission, but is seeking a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to add a 4th lot to the existing 3-lot shared driveway, which is the maximum allowed under the zoning. And so any addition or modification triggers the zoning board variance. And there are very strict standards to meet that variance. The variance hearing was supposed to be this evening. However, there were technical difficulties with the Zoom, and they're 100% online, so they couldn't hold it. So the board is now active, and that would be sort of allowing the 4-lot access to this shared driveway. So your review is more technical in nature about the way the driveway connects, the access and all of that. You could go ahead and hear the project, understand what the constraints are, and if there are any issues related to site plan, address those, and either make a decision but it would have to be contingent upon them getting, but the only way this driveway could be created is with the zoning board of appeals approval of there. So you could go through your hearing process, or you could continue it to the 13th to allow the zoning board to make a decision. But they're the applicant needs both. But the actual access is really going to be more dictated out. And then they're looking at the technical elements.
Is there an option for the applicant just to build their own curb cut off of Park Hill rather than the shared driveway?
Yes, and they've gone to the conservation commission for that, but it's a lot more wetland in.
show you.
Commission prefers that there be less impact, even though they granted the permit. And if the zoning, if the variance would be granted, that would be less wetland impact.
So the conservation commission has had their say,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they're okay with the increased revenue impact.
But their condition that they first try to get a variance.
So if the
Because it
variance,
would be less
Yeah,
Oh, well, we have, we don't want to go into it now. We're deciding whether to table it or not right now, are we?
kind of,
Yeah. Sorry.
if the variance 2 weeks from now is not granted, do they have two approvals from the Conservation Commission? One for the wetlands impacted by the shared driveway and one by the wetlands of the curb cut? Or do they need to go back?
They
to
don't
the-
need to go back.
My preference, well, I think the other hearing is gonna be continued tonight. So we have some time, so my preference would be to just hear it tonight, understanding that. ZBA could shoot them down. If we continue it, then we're gonna have more stuff the next meeting. So I'd rather take the time to do it in this meeting.
We're gonna sit here until 7:30.
The other, you gotta do it. Yeah, it must be almost 7:30.
talk slow.
Something that we have to read, so,
Well, the next agenda item.
Well, it's only 14 minutes away.
Sit here on silent for 14 minutes so we can hear it.
No,
hear
that
this
makes
now.
sense. We can
I'm
hear
in
it.
favor of hearing it as well,
Yeah.
because then we just, if it goes through ZBA, then if they're all set.
Yeah, right.
Come back to us.
Right.
I find it to be really interesting that
It's-
they got the approval for the driveway already. Through the conservation commission, really interesting that they said, we'll give it to you, but you have to
Mhm.
try and see, get it the other way.
The whole project is kind of interesting, actually, yes. As simple as it is.
So
Just saying.
my hesitancy is that if we go ahead and vote and approve the site plan. Then, and conservation has, and in some ways, even subjectively, we're kind of forcing the hand of the ZBA. Not forcing the hand, not strong language, but, they'll see it as being a done deal already. So I wondered if we could go through the site plan kind of questions and hear the presentation and get everything here, and yet still push our decision back for 2 weeks until we hear from the ZBA.
I like that idea.
All right, we can make a motion. Are we gonna have a motion? Okay, all right. So then we're back to a little presentation. by
Yes,
Mr. Design.
This is, yes, these are always fun. And exciting. Yeah, this is an interesting one. So, yeah, as Jeff Squire from the Berkshire Design Group, here with Wright Builders, who is online, who's building the project. As Carolyn noted, this is at 213 Park Hill Road. It's this one undeveloped single-family lot off of Park Hill Road. It sort of rises steeply from Park Hill Road, which is, on the right side of the page, uphill to subdivision. I forget the name of the subdivision, but at the top of the hill. And it's remained undeveloped for several years. There is as a common driveway that extends off of the lines don't exactly align with the ortho, but this common driveway does currently serve 3 lots. There's 1, 2, 3 houses that are serviced off the lot now. Just a couple of street view images of what looks like along Park Hill Road. That common drive right now, you can see is right here. There's a little break in the vegetation that offers access. You can see that right here into the sort of larger part of the lot. The majority of the frontage is just larger, shrubs and overgrowth within the city right away. Originally, so this was a survey of the property. So originally, the project started with the idea that we would utilize this existing opening in the vegetation, looking through the common driveway standards and definitions in the bylaw. It specifically says that common driveway originates beyond the frontage of the property line. And so this was in the city right away. And so we had an interpretation that this could be this is within DPW's purview, not necessarily a planning board issue or a common drive. This would be a goofy curb cut or something. And so DPW had some questions about it. At the same time, the issue of that drainage ditch and whether or not that was regulated resource areas came into question. So we had to get that flagged. There's an existing culvert under the shared driveway there now. So all that work happened. We did have, an original a driveway plan that utilized that opening. Came into the site to a single family, a modest single family house location. I think it's 1,800 square feet. Car garage, 2-car garage underneath. So just trying to take advantage of the topography, but you can get a sense of how what that slope is like. Trying to fit in septic system, and so that was where this all started. With the wetland impacts and understanding the limitations at that curb cut. This was the proposal, and what eventually got approved by the Conservation Commission was to provide a second means of egress into the site via new driveway curb cut. It had to cross the wetlands, and extension of the existing culvert. There were wetland impacts, there was bank impacts. All that needed to get replicated, and slid the septic system back to accommodate all of that work. I think, obviously, this is a very sort of environmentally sensitive owner, and really value the value of the views as well as sort of the open field down in front. And so the idea really was not to impact any more wetlands or do any more environmental damage than needed to be. So this is where we ended up as a result of the various regulations and requirements. And as Caroline noted, the conservation approved this with a caveat that we at least pursue a variance with the zoning board that would allow at least a 4th common drive or driveway off of that existing driveway. And so the proposal ultimately would be to move from that, what was that original opening to, a new, I guess, shared drive entrance, just north of the property line. So it would be a true, 4th driveway entrance off that common drive. That would, again, just align with the remainder of the driveway and the site work. It, completely eliminates any environmental or wetland impacts, any bank impacts, any of the replication work that was required as a result of the wetlands ordinance. I think, again, this is more in keeping with, the character of what the owner was hoping for in terms of, less work is better. And this is what made sense. So there were 34, let's see, there was 34 linear feet of bank that was originally part of the project. We had to double that, so that turned into 63 feet of replication. There were a little over, there's about 152 square feet of wetland disturbance. That had to get replicated, with 308 square feet of, so, in all, it was, a much larger disturbance area than we anticipated. So any of the blue and or green in these images were the expanded work area. So the variance request to the zoning board is to allow this, fourth driveway on Common Drive.
And that generally doesn't change, the steepness of the driveway or anything else. It's really just doesn't connect here or 20 feet over.
Right.
There's a lot more wetland.
Exactly. Culvert, yeah, there's a lot of work associated with that additional curb cut, for sure.
But you can do this project without the planning board approval whatsoever, because you have the conservation approval. So it's really just up to the planning board to say, hey, we want to limit this wetland disturbance completely.
No,
And then the ZBA has to make their determination too, but planning board is here to say we can have a fourth driveway,
right,
fourth shared driveway.
right.
And that from a technical standpoint, it meets everything that we usually look at with respect to a shared driveway. Right?
Right, that's the review for the planning board. The zoning board is the one that will determine whether the fourth lot can be served by the shared driveway.
Carolyn, can you explain if it's relevant to our deliberations, why the zoning only allows a maximum of 3 lots to be shared, served by a shared driveway?
So this has been in the books for a long time. I think the original reason is that, shared driveways are just driveways, they're not streets. And so it shouldn't be a mechanism to avoid the subdivision rules to creating frontage and street access to lots of lots. And that has a safety, emergency services safety impact. The more houses that are wound around back and behind each other off of a shared driveway, the harder it is to, access for emergency access, emergency response. So we've updated the rules recently to say you can serve up to 6 lots if it loops back to the street. So in essence, there are 2 ways to get to, 2 loopings at 3. So, but this has been longstanding that, shared driveways really can only serve 3 lots.
Let me just check in for a minute. Stacy or the public, are you able to hear us okay? And the presentation?
I definitely heard the presentation. I'm hearing most of the comments. I have my volume turned all the way up, and some of them are a little bit hard to hear. So I have to focus really hard, but I'm not sure if, why they're hard to hear, but presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my procedural question is, if hypothetically the ZBA says, no, we're not going to allow the driveway to have a 4th one, then they will go back to more issues with the wetland, but they'll create a driveway right off of Park Hill. And therefore, theoretically, they won't need a site plan review with the planning board, correct?
Correct.
And that ZBA hearing is right before this meeting.
So the ZBA starts at 5:30. Yes.
So we can talk about some of the issues that was flagged by staff, like the steepness of the driveway. Yep, I think we have a criteria of no greater than 10% grade in any part of a driveway. And can you attest on the plans that the finished product, the finished driveway?
This one is graded at 12%. Yeah, it's just given the topography of the site and the separation needed from septic and getting a driveway into a site, this is a 12%. There is, obviously a provision in the bylaw that allows, approval for something steeper. We're working, we're trying to minimize the amount of impact on the site and preserve a lot of the trees that are on the, off to the southwest there. And so, it's getting it to 10% is been something we've looked at. We're against, there's a water main and easement along the northern edge of the property. So that cuts off, this whole side of the property is all encompassed within, I don't know why is this doing that? But there's a water easement that we can't encroach on the north side, north edge of the property, so it confines our project a little bit more than, ideal.
So just to clarify, there is a provision in the ordinance that allows up to 12% on south-facing slopes with review from the planning office and fire. And I think in this situation, the fire department and what's typical requires a sprinkler system for the home because of that extra grade for the potential difficulty of being able to access the site in an emergency.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot to mention that. Yes. So Wright Builders is aware that, that's part of the project now is a sprinkler system.
Were to condition that would be a waiver of the zoning regs or it wouldn't be?
No, there is a specific provision. This happens to be south facing, so they meet those. And now, if it were a different scenario, there would be no provision to go above 10%. And so it's more of an administrative review, so it's falls within that 12%. Under those specific conditions, a driveway would be constructed.
And of course, the shared portion of the driveway is existing, so they're not touching the shared driveway rate that is currently exists. And that's just the driveway serving the regular. And the shared driveway is nowhere near as steep as this one.
The other note by the staff was to make sure that if this was conditioned, that there would be tree protection. So what surprised me is I went there today and construction has already been well underway. There's foundation poured, the trees have been cut. There's all kinds, they put up stormwater protection, so to speak, barriers and all for runoff. But I guess I was a little bit surprised that so much has been done without the ZBA variance. So, and without our overview of the site plan. So really it all moved forward on the Conservation Commission's kind of NOI. So we didn't have a chance to look at the trees, to see what we cut down. I see the trees stacked there, Jeff. I can't tell for sure, not being an arborist and not having a tape measure, whether those were the trees that were spec'd on the plans, whether that was the amount. It's a little, it was a little untoward, and I don't blame Berkshire Design for that, but.
No, and I would just add that I think just back to the earlier discussion that, there was a permit in place to do this project. And the condition of that permit was to pursue a variance, which then necessitated review by the planning board. And so they have a permit to do the work. We, as part of our due course, with these types of projects, we had our survey crew, because we did the survey, go out there and identify everything that was, that might have been subject to the path that it took, didn't necessarily require planning board review. And so, we're here now because of some of the other conditions in other permits. And so, what I can say is that at least one significant tree was removed out of that lot. And I know we've got, a full-blown landscape planning plan that will follow as part of this construction process. So, whatever we need to do to, resolve that condition, because we're here before the planning board, not the Conservation Commission or some of the other, the zoning board. And it was really, it wasn't the fault of anybody's necessarily. It was, I think the intent originally was to utilize that opening, that obvious entrance into the site, which spiraled into a bunch of other, permit requirements and, conditions. And so I don't think there's any, ill will or trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. It's, here we are. And so we did identify which trees would need to come down. There was a number in that little cluster there on the left side that needed to come out. But we did at least catalog, and those can be seen in at least the existing conditions. So yeah, any of the significant trees were identified here, so we can certainly work with the planning board to, figure out replacement and whatever we need to do to, resolve that condition. But yeah, I mean, work progressed because we had a permit and they had a permit to do, the work under the notice of intent or order of conditions. And so we're just following through with some of the conditions that were spelled out in those permits.
So Jeff, have you been to the site? Can you confirm if all 4 of those trees were taken down? On the plan set, it says 2 significant trees to be removed, but given the grading, it really looks like there are that whole cluster of 4 would probably be significantly affected by the grading. So I don't know if you've been to the site and can confirm.
I haven't been out, within the last couple of months, but I can certainly, go out and make a site visit and confirm what has been taken out and not. Yeah.
What are they?
I think they are either maples or oaks. Yeah, I'm not sure if but we can certainly figure out what those.
If we could figure it out, that would change our calculation for the replacement, right?
Yeah, make a condition about that, and given that the size is.
I guess we would still ask for tree protection for those that go with trees along the boundary line there. And I don't know if the one up top comes into play. The big one up top with the foundation, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, that one's.
Foundation is there.
Yeah, that one's far enough north.
Also, a question in the staff memo about a bike shed that appears on the plans to be a wetland buffer.
So one of the original requests by the owner was to include a bike shed, it's some storage space down near the entrance of the driveway. I know there is some storage space in the garage. I don't know, we haven't had enough direct communication with the client directly to understand that relationship and that need. Obviously things have changed, over the, course of several months with as the project takes hold. So there may not be a need for that anymore, but I can confirm that.
I would be able to ride my bike up that hill. Posting down. But yeah, let's look at that. It probably can't be built there.
Was that on the Conservation Commission permitting?
These have been the same plans, yes. And we could certainly move that location if need be. I think understanding the need for it overall would be the biggest question.
The question is, should we open up the public? Alrighty. Well, at this point, we'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone here in council chambers who would like to speak for or against this application? Hearing none, we'll turn it over to our friends on Zoom. Is there anyone who would like to speak related to this application by Right Builders? Stacy, didn't mean to gloss over any of your questions.
That's okay. I don't have any right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joe has a question. Can Joe unmute himself?
Yeah, hi, Joe Killenly. Just a clarifying question.
Joe, just for the record, can you give us your address?
22 Clare Avenue in Florence,
And your last name, Joe?
Cantilini.
Okay,
Um, one of the issues with the new driveway is the variance or that would have to be on the grade of the driveway being 12. And I understand that part of the reason that the driveway has sort of shifted in the plans was because of the impacts to the culvert and the wetlands areas there. But just out of curiosity, what was the grade of the driveway? Did it change measurably when it was in that previous location? Was it 10 or less at that point?
good question. So if they maintained a curb cut right off of Park Hill Road, would that have affected the grade of the driveway? I doubt it, but I will turn to our landscape architect.
No, I mean, really, there was a slight decrease in grade with a new curb cut just because of that additional length, but essentially, once you got into the property, it's at the same grade that it was previously.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. I mean, so essentially the grade is going to need the variance regardless of whether it impacts the wetlands or preferably doesn't. So that's clarifying. Thank you.
The zoning board has nothing to do with the grading. It's just adding the fourth lot to the record.
All right, thank you, Joe. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Make a comment related to the application? All right, hearing none, we'll turn back to the board. For questions, clarifications? Everybody's good, all right. Suggestions to move forward? We can. Somebody could make a motion, well, I don't want to close the public hearing yet until we decide that we're gonna vote on this now, or if we want to wait until the ZBA. I think that's the issue in front of us.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to wait for the ZBA, and then if they don't approve a fourth law, the applicant would just withdraw this application from us, and we wouldn't hear it at all, right?
I agree.
So in that case, I would move to continue this public hearing to the next
March 13th
available March 13th at
at
7 p.m.
All right, okay, discussion. So again, just to clarify one more time, Chris State made the motion that we should continue it. To find out what the GBA says, so that if in fact they approve the fourth lot, then we'll come back and we'll have to approve this application for site plan review and the conditions. If they don't approve the
You don't
fourth,
have to.
we don't have to,
Yes.
correct. It appears that the board is leaning in that direction, but if the ZBA says no, they won't approve that fourth lot, then it'll go back to just a by right curb cut and work with the building inspector. And this application to the planning board would be withdrawn. Correct?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Great.
Motion's been made. Was there a second? Okay, with Baker, great. Let's have a voice vote to, because we have one member by Zoom. And we'll start with you, Stacy.
Yes.
Okay, Rich? Yes. Chris? Yes. Dana?
Yes.
And Melissa?
Yes.
And George? Yes, okay, so unanimously approved to move that to postpone it until the 13th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for working through that with us.
Oh, yeah.
There's always a wrinkle. Well, at this time, we will open up public hearings scheduled for 7:30 PM for a continuation from February 13th of a hearing on a request by Berkshire Design Group for Sunwood Builders LLC for a site plan and special permit to construct a 5-story mixed-use 88,500 plus or minus square foot building, which would comprise 71 residential units with curb cuts at 3 Elm Street, map ID 31D-103. Who wants to go first? Berkshire Design or Carolyn?
I can just, so the reason why this was continued, if you remember, where the board wanted, the applicant to just, go back and look at some options for alterations, but importantly as well, Department of Public Works had not been, able to issue a stormwater permit, which has to happen before the board can close its hearing and make a decision. The Department of Public Works is still reviewing, so they they've asked the applicant to go back and provide some more information about stormwater. So there's no need to have the hearing tonight. I would just recommend that you continue it. The DPW needs 2 weeks to review anything that's submitted. So the March 13th date would not leave enough time for that. So I would recommend that you continue it to March 27th. And so far, we don't have anything on the agenda, so you can either put it right up front or second, 30, whatever.
All right, so the previous application, we put that on March 13th,
Yes.
and this is the 27th. The dates are the same as this one, confusing.
That's February for you.
February, yeah. Thank you. Anything to add from Berkshire Design?
No, I don't think so. I think, as Karen pointed out, there's a number of things and input we're getting from various sources, historical, and so it's a big project and trying to resolve all the questions and issues. So, yeah.
Great. So I appreciate that there's members in the public here and online who came to maybe speak to this agenda, but I don't think at this point we'll entertain those comments, but I would hopefully suggest that all of you come on the 27th if you have suggestions and comments about the project. So we'll need another motion to continue this application, this hearing until the 27th.
Well, I'll state for the record that I watched the entire recording of 2 weeks ago. So I can participate even with the continuation of this.
Thank you. We agree.
I feel comfortable voting to continue.
Well, I'll move that we continue the hearing on the request by Berkshire Design Group for Sunwood Builders to site plan and special permit to construct 5-story blah.
Till March 27th
March 27th.
at 7.
So we could do like 7:05 or 7:10. So if something small does come in, we could fit it ahead of time, but we don't have to wait
Okay.
until 7:30.
That's it.
Great administrative tweak. Okay,
Sounds good.
Second.
so the motion's been made to extend the hearing until March 27th at 7:15. At which time we'll hear public comment again and get more information from the applicant.
I think it was 7:10.
I heard 7:10.
7:10? All right, there's a
7:12.
friendly amendment to the motion. It is now 7:10, okay. I heard 7:05, 7:10, I just.
You added.
You did it, you add them together.
Yeah. All right, motion's been made by Rich Baker and seconded by
Me.
Melissa. All right. So we'll go to a voice vote, and Stacy, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Okay, Rich,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
and Melissa,
Yes.
and George, yes, unanimous. See you on the 27th. Thanks for coming, public. Wait. I didn't see anything else on our agenda in terms of minutes or other administrative details. First time in a while there has been an A&R. Okay. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Alright, go, Jared.
Second.
Motion's been made to adjourn at 7:48. All right, any discussion? Oh, we'll start with you then, Stacy,
Yes, again.
Yes.
Rich, Chris,
Yes.
Jana,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
and George. Planning board meeting is adjourned.